Here we are again. Welcome to Two Guys Talking. And today we're going to talk about mental health, just coming out of the Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're right on time. So, yeah.
I feel very aware of mental health, partly because, and this is no joke, I'm married to a mental health therapist. Her sister, who also lives in town, is a mental health therapist, and her sister's husband, who also lives in town, mental health therapist. So I don't have far to go if I'm getting out of whack and that's not including my own therapist.
You have a therapist in addition to the other.
I do. It's a smart thing to do because while family, my wife and her sister and husband are all very sharp therapists. Um, what I want to say, it's not like you want them all to be objective all the time anyway, but oftentimes the closeness can affect what you're
Sure.
hearing.
Sure.
And so I know with my therapist, this is maybe the fifth therapist I've had. I've had some great stories about therapists that I've loved who've passed away, but my therapist right now is able to put her finger right on what my problem is. So I'm very fortunate, and you think you get to a certain point where there's not much work left to be done, and then you realize how much more work there's left to be done to keep things in balance.
Yeah, my therapist, I do have a therapist. I've had a therapist for most of my life. I was 9 years old when I first went into therapy, children's therapy, obviously, because I was 9 years old. So, but, and then intermittently up until my 30s. And then from my 30s on, it's been pretty regular. I have a good therapist now. Very happy. But it's a long road to get there.
It's such a long road, and I didn't know that I needed a therapist. I first got into therapy after we had our second child, and all I knew was that when my wife left me alone with them while she went to work, I wasn't petrified, but I was terrified of doing something wrong, of not being attentive enough. And so from the moment she left to the moment she got home, I was on such high alert that I think the accumulation of all that would have been debilitating at some point. And so I didn't know what my issues were. My wife said, we need to find you a therapist. And we did. And, whenever you go see a therapist, particularly if you're going to get insurance, they have to write a diagnosis. So I had no idea. And I got the sheet from him that I was going to file, and the diagnosis was depression.
Yeah.
And I thought, am I depressed? I think I'm depressed.
And this was your second child? You didn't experience it with the first child?
Well, I think after my first child was born, my wife was just starting to get into private practice. And so for the first couple of years, she was doing most of it. So I had the out of, I wasn't the primary carer.
Okay.
But after the second child was born, I had a sabbatical, which allowed my wife to work more. And so not only had I not been the primary carer for one child, now I was the primary carer for two.
Right.
And even though I did a lot, I was a hands-on father. I fed, I changed, I did whatever I needed to do and could do. Still, it was a quantum leap from being home alone with them.
Sure.
And they were great kids, but still, they were kids.
Sure. How did you react to that diagnosis of depression?
Well, I did look at it and go, well, maybe this explains a lot. I'm not denying that I'm depressed, but no one had just ever told me per se that I might be depressed. So it was a shock on one level. And then after it sunk in, really not that long at all, I thought this might explain so much about my life that I really didn't know. And I don't know what it would have been like if I got into therapy when you did, when I was a kid, but I go back and think about being a kid, and as much as a kid could be depressed, I was probably depressed then.
Yeah, yeah. I've been
So
close.
it was kind of comforting to know that, well, there's nothing really bad wrong with me, but this is something that, I do need to work on. And I didn't need medication even and then I wanted to try medication. And, medication is a crapshoot sometimes. So the medication I tried didn't really work. But over the last couple of years, when things have gotten much for me, I got on Wellbutrin, and it's been working really fine.
Yeah, that's my drug of choice.
It's a
But
wonderful drug.
that's the dirty secret with depression medication. The efficacy of them is really a crapshoot.
Hmm.
And I think the studies back that up. So it's just, oh, that one didn't work. We'll try this one. Well, that one didn't work. We'll try this one. And you go around the table till you find something that works.
Yeah, and the scary thing is, Keith, that my older daughter, tried Wellbutrin after her first child was born, and she said it made her so crazy that within 24 hours of taking it, she was more depressed than she had ever been.
Oh, wow.
And her husband smartly said, "You need to not take that anymore." And
Yeah,
so what works for me, even biologically speaking, what works for one person may be the exact wrong thing for another.
exactly. That's totally true. Totally true.
So I'm wondering, as we talk, how these days, how we think men might be dealing with their own mental health, because I still talk to men who say, well, there's nothing wrong with you, as if there has to be something really wrong with you just to want to be in therapy.
I don't know how they deal with it. I mean, I can tell you where I live. I would submit that a lot of men don't view therapy as a viable method of feeling better. They exercise that in different ways, whether it's through fanaticism about sports, excessive drinking. I don't know. I can only speak for myself, and I couldn't imagine life without therapy.
Yeah.
But by and large, I'd probably submit most men don't acknowledge the importance of therapy. What do you think?
Well, I think I have one best friend that I know was in therapy long before I was, but I don't think I know really any other man in my personal life who goes to a therapist. The only other one that I did is my friend who passed away almost 9 years ago. And even when he was in therapy, he saw his job as to entertain his therapist.
Mm,
And so that didn't really do a whole lot. And unfortunately, his therapist never called him on it. So he finally got another therapist who was more helpful. But I think by that time in his life, he had so many defenses up that it was going to take a monumental effort from the therapist to break through to what I believe was his core issue. And his core issue was being abused by his mother when he was a kid. And he got close to telling my wife and me about what was going on. He even said some things that he almost laughed off that his mother did. And my wife and I were sitting there with horrified looks on our face, like, oh my God. So even then, it was, and he was an enlightened guy. He even had a master's degree in psychology and
mm.
still just wasn't able. It hurt too much to unlock. And I would say this is probably what's going on with a lot of men, particularly, that they don't want to feel that pain again, whatever it is. And so they will, as you said, become a sports fanatic or drink way too much to try to numb out when truth gets too close.
Do you think that's a cause of this male loneliness epidemic that people keep talking about?
I do. I very much do. Um, I kind of, my wife gets a little nervous about me when I talk too much about and write too much about loneliness. And she said, but you've got me, you've got the kids, you've got everyone. I said, logically, I know all that and it feels good most of the time. But when you feel, when you just feel alone, when there's too much going on and you don't even know how to express it. And I know how to express it, but I get trapped sometimes in not being able to. I can't imagine what it would be like to feel that alone and to not think you had any outlet or any source of help. So I do think that's what's going on. I think men have a really hard time, even with their good friends, letting down their guard. And I mean, I know when I have talk to friends, male friends, about issues that I've had. And, to be frank with you at this point, as many men my age will experience, I have to have a biopsy on my prostate.
Okay.
So I'm upfront with it. I think I know what's going on. And I think I know if it turns out to be something, I think I know what treatment I want. Um, when I start talking to friends who've either not at that point of life or just don't want to get too personal, they change the subject so quickly and just go, wow, that's really bad. I'll be thinking about you. Then it's on to something else. We can't stay in that moment.
Wow.
Oftentimes, what really is helpful is just someone to listen to you, even if what
Yeah.
they're doing is ticking off their fears.
Yeah. If I get depressed or bummed out or whatever, the greatest question you can ask somebody is, what can I do?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes the answer is nothing, but thank you for asking.
Yeah.
It's not trying to correct the depression or anything like that. It's just being present.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Men have this tendency to want to fix things too quickly.
Yeah.
And the fix is never a real fix. It's just that temporary fix. Kind of like you, I just want to be someone to be with me and to listen
Yeah.
and just to provide that kind of comfort. Even if what they're suggesting is let's just do something normal, like go to the record store and hang out together. That feels good.
Yeah.
If they can't talk personally about it.
Yeah. Where do
So,
you think?
yeah,
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
Now, I was going to ask you about your own journey of mental health and how you assess what changes it's made in you over, well, this is a lot of years since you started therapy.
I'll pick it up from the later half of my life. It's given me names. It's given me understanding to what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. That where before there was nothing, it was just I was misbehaving. I was, whatever the case may be. It was unmanageable, obnoxious. So all of these things, and all of those things were certainly true, but I think part of that is the undiagnosed ADHD and the depression, which often work hand in hand.
Yep.
And my journey with depression, once I found out that that's what it was, I remember a counselor in high school, she looked at me and she said, I can't do anything more for you. You need to get a psychiatrist. So we found one. But and that's when I learned about depression, and the journey from there has been more troubled by the fucking medical system than anything.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because most of my 20s I didn't have insurance. So you'd have to get back when doctors gave out samples. My shrink would schedule me for 15-minute appointments, which I could afford, and give me samples.
Mm.
That's how I paid for it because I didn't have insurance. I was a bartender, didn't,
Yeah.
didn't have insurance. So, but lately, that journey's led me to just acceptance. You know, like this is part of who I am. Sometimes I had one shrink describe it to me this way. He goes, if everyone operates on this level, you operate like just below that level,
Mm.
you know? And I'm like, all right, that tracks. That makes sense to me with little valleys. And so I've learned to accept it and I've learned to recognize what's situational and what's non-situational depression, which I think has helped me tremendously,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Depression is one of those things that it's like an umbrella for all these different moods that we have that are low. But I don't know about you, what the root causes for you are. In our last podcast, we talked about losing our dogs. And what my current therapist helped me figure out where she took me. And there's this thing called EMDR where you go through this ritual, right, and of sounds, and then you go back. It's allowing something to open up for you. And what this opened up for me was when I was 6, I think, and I got my first dog. I had a puppy. It lived for 2 weeks,
Oh,
and it had distemper, which almost no dog gets anymore. But back then, if they didn't have a inoculation, they got it pretty. And so it all of a sudden I went from having this beautiful little puppy to being told that they had to put my dog to sleep. And I didn't have any concept of what that meant other than death. And I was devastated. And while my parents told me what was happening, they really didn't comfort me. And so
yeah.
they got me another dog quickly. And so they displaced it onto something else that I could love. But I never really got over what the trauma of losing that was. And so I think I can't even measure what that did to me other than it made me so fearful of loss, so
Mm.
fearful of even trying things, which particularly with animals, it didn't stop me from having cats, but it stopped me after a while from wanting a dog again. And so when I lost my dog 5 months ago, my therapist was helping me connect all of that so that I at least had a place to feel like I was getting comfort, and maybe a comfort that was 55 years long overdue.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, my depression stems from we moved all the time
Uh-huh.
when I was a kid. Every 2 years until I was about 12 years old, just because my father was climbing the corporate ladder. You know, it wasn't,
Yeah.
we weren't on the run. Um, but, and I think that has a profound impact on kids in retrospect. I mean, you learn very quickly not to make friends very quickly. You know, you just know because you're going to be leaving soon. You
And how
know,
many times were you the new kid coming into school?
far too many. I mean,
Oh.
countless times, and it always sucks. My parents were, to their benefit, they never moved us during the school year. They would only move us in the summer, so that was to their benefit. They didn't want to disrupt us that much. But I think that had a profound effect on me.
Sure.
you know? Yeah.
Are you in touch with any of those friends that you made and left
No,
from those days? No.
no, no. I don't even, I mean, I wouldn't even know their names. That's not true. A couple of them, I know their names, but that would involve going into Facebook, and I don't.
Oh yeah. 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 Um, what's so sad about that, to hear you say that, what's sad to me is that I have the benefit of having this old core of friends because my parents didn't move. And I'm still in touch with 4 or 5 different friends that I've known basically all my life.
Yeah.
And, there's no one who knows you better other than a spouse than someone who's known you all your life and been a peer.
Yeah.
They know what the fuck's going on and what has gone on with you. And so I really am fortunate I can pick up the phone and call any of these guys, and I think I'm the type of person who can draw them out about what really is going on with them if they're having issues. So I feel fortunate that I have that, and I don't know what it would be like to not have that, because that just makes me feel safe.
I've always been jealous of people like you who have that, you know. Even my friends from high school, there were 5 of us that hung out. One lives in Japan, one lives in Australia. I live here, and 2 committed suicide. So, not a lot of connection.
No. And to go back to the loneliness thing, when this is under the best circumstances, when adolescence hits, you do feel like you're alone. You're navigating it all alone. There could be a friend group, and so there could be these pockets of, okay, well, everything is okay because I'm not the only one. But if you don't have a solid friend group, I fear that's when the real despondency, perhaps the suicide, comes in, where there's no one to count on. Because while I didn't have close friends to commit suicide, my brother and I were just talking the other day, in our community, we could name 5 different kids, all males, who committed suicide before they reached college age.
Wow.
And they were from wealthy, affluent families.
That's grim.
Yeah, one of them, it was, I think, his own, well, not his own. His issue was he didn't know how to come out to his parents and his friends. And when he did come out, both his parents utterly rejected him. In fact, even after he committed suicide, you couldn't speak his name in their presence. He was dead to them even before he was dead.
Wow. Jeez.
But I grew up in Alabama, so remember that.
Yeah, but still, it's your kid.
I know. And these people went to our church, the church that I grew up in. So that didn't matter.
Where do you think depression plays a role in creativity? Do you think it does?
I think it can. Of course, sorry, there's a plane going over my head right now. I think it can, and it's just dependent on the level of it, because a bit of depression and a bit of trying to seek out what's going on and will enable you to write a little bit about it, and maybe to write really well about an experience, or about, I'm one who likes to use music as a springboard, or I can use TV shows that hit me or movies as a springboard. So when I'm feeling not so depressed, I can write my way, maybe not totally out of it, but I can cope with it through writing. But so for instance, when in the few weeks after my dog died, I couldn't write at all. Mm-hmm. I could write in my journal to my dog, but I couldn't write. I didn't want to write. And I think that level of depression, of grief in that regard, I'm glad I was able to come out of it, but it was an uphill fight for sure. So not that depression, but I think other forms of depression that aren't debilitating will allow a writer to want to figure out what's going on, what triggered it, what's helpful, and whatever avenue or technique one can take at that point to face your depression. So I think it can. It has for me.
I've never been able to write when I'm bummed out. It's just never, nothing is ever good enough.
Sure.
So,
Well, you mentioned before we came on about the piece that I just wrote on rejection.
yeah.
And had we been talking 3 weeks ago, I would have said, I don't want to write. I don't know what I would write. It's not going to be good, because I'd had something that I'd worked really hard on rejected, by a place that I was so hopeful would take it. And part of this was because my best friend had recommended this place. So it was like a double rejection. I felt like my piece was rejected and I was rejected, and I couldn't tell him that I had this rejection because I didn't want his disappointment. And so it just was a moment where I thought, why am I even a writer?
Yeah.
Why am I doing any of this? What's the point? So, yeah.
How do you deal with writer's block? Do you, let me back up, rewind. Do you have writer's block, or have you ever experienced it?
Only minimally. I'm the sort of person that stories will get triggered really quickly by little things that people will say. My brother, who's living with us right now, mentioned something the other day, and he got into trouble when he was a teenager by making prank phone calls. And he made, I mean, it's so much fun to make a prank phone call, and
It's a whole generation that missed out on that.
they really did. They don't know what that's like for sure. Every now and then your prank phone call would get found out, and his did. And so he and my parents had to go face the person he had been prank calling, which was not his direct boss, but the big boss above. I mean, just dumb stuff, right? Why are you doing this? But so he was recounting that story, and I was just, as I always do, even though this happened 45 years ago, I just cringed. I couldn't imagine what that must have been like that day when they met this guy that he had been pranking. But he said, after they were in there for an hour, and finally my mother walked out, she had had it. He and my father hung out for a little bit longer, and they walked out. He was banned from certain things and threatened with lawsuits and so forth. And then he said, yeah, and after it was over, we left and drove about a half mile to this other shopping area, and we had supper at Morrison's cafeteria. And that struck me as so fucking funny. I couldn't stop laughing. I said, so you went through this horrible experience, it's over. I said, okay, well, let's go eat at the cafeteria then. And lo and behold, when they were in the cafeteria, who should come in but the guy that they antagonized and his wife? They're all in Morrison's cafeteria.
Oh, man.
And so I thought, just hearing that, I'm working on that story right now, because I thought, okay, I've got to write this. I don't know from what point of view I'm writing it, but I'm just going to start writing. So things like that. I am a fortunate person that I don't have to worry much about writer's block.
Good.
But I suspect that you do.
Oh, I do. Big time. Yeah. Yeah. I've had a hard time with it lately. And I thought revisiting some of my older writing might jumpstart, but no, it hasn't. I mean, I shouldn't say no, it hasn't entirely. It's jumpstarted it in the sense that I edit the older pieces, because I do have a different Substack where I post my personal stuff, because I I want to keep one entirely music focused and one personal.
Sure. Sure.
But with the music stuff, I don't even know what's going on there. I think part of it is that there are so many good writers out there. It's like, where is there room for my voice? And that's what I struggle with. And I shouldn't, because intellectually I can say it doesn't matter if there's room for your voice. You just make room for it.
Well, I can tell you, you are a good writer, and I so thoroughly enjoyed the series that you did a couple years ago about your girlfriends.
Oh yeah.
It was so relatable, but your voice was unmistakable. It was, of course, like I think you are, very wry sense of humor, kind of self-deprecating, but also not afraid to talk about your successes and your loves and how things fell apart if they did fall apart. You're being vulnerable. All those things make a great writer to me.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess I should, and that seems to be my sweet spot.
Did you run out of girlfriends to write about?
I have. Well, no.
Well, there's your mission. Find a new girlfriend.
There are some women that I vowed I would never write about.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that.
But there's certainly plenty more information I can mine.
When I'm teaching creative writing, and sometimes the funniest things happen. I have this brilliant student. She was more of a literary criticism type, so she was going to venture out into the world of creative writing, and so students are supposed to meet individually with me a couple of times a semester just to talk about upcoming projects or more personally about what they've been doing. And so she comes into my office and just says, I don't know what to write about. I don't think I have anything to write about, which is something when you've signed up for a creative writing class. So I just looked at her and I said, you don't think you do, eh? I said, well, let's just do what I'd like to do with brainstorming here. Let's go back and think about what life was like for you when you were in, say, the 5th grade. And she said, and I could just see her mind start working. And then she said, can you really write about things like that? I said, well, of course you can write about things like that. You can write about whatever you want to write about. And she ended up coming up with this great story about her dad teaching her how to play basketball and bullying her while she played basketball, to the point where she was supposed to guard him, and he plows right into her.
Oh my God.
And doesn't even help her up. And so it became this really great story, but she didn't know that she could write about something that I'm sure to her might have seemed either way too long ago or even trite.
Yeah.
So I'm always saying, well, who was your 3rd grade teacher? Who was your best friend at that time? When did you get spanked like I did in 1st grade for giving my desk mate the answer to an arithmetic problem? Then I got told on. The teacher yanked me out of the seat and smacked me on the butt.
The good old days of corporal punishment.
Yeah, that's a horrible story too, because she was married to our first vet, and later on she was killed by her own kid, who, I mean, this is such a horrible story. In their garage, he was supposed to be backing the car out of the garage while she stood in front of the car, and he didn't put it in reverse. He put it in drive and accelerated.
Oh gosh, that's horrible.
One thing without the other. If I think about her, I think about her hitting me, then I think about how she died, which had no relation. One didn't have any relation to the other, but it's just that story.
I was once paddled. We had a paddle in 7th grade in junior high, one of these wood paddles.
Yeah.
The vice principal hit me so hard he broke it on the first hit. And he goes, now look what you made me do.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I did.
What do you think you did?
I think He had called me to the office, and I got confused, and I thought they were calling me to the counselor's office.
Oh my God.
So,
You
so he
paddled
got,
that?
yeah, he got a little irritated because I was late. That's
Well,
how I remember it. But I remember my parents, again, to their benefit, they went in there, and my mother said, if anyone's going to hit my child, it's going to be me.
well, Keith, that's a great story. You should write it.
Yeah. I can embellish. I can embellish the story.
I got sent home in ninth grade for hair that was not even as long as it is now. What little hair I have. You couldn't have your hair could not touch the top of your ears
That's
when I was in ninth
crazy.
grade. Of course, it's crazy. It's batshit crazy. This was a time where our schools were finally integrating, and we had so many students in this high school, and it was nuts. And so to try to impose a dress code on all this, that's the least of your problems.
That's funny.
It was funny, yeah. And I remember the guys like six of us sitting in the principal's office about to be sent home for our hair, and one guy ended up quitting. He went to college early. The rest of us either got haircuts or faked it. I had been faking it. I'd try to stuff my hair behind my ears, and I just got caught one day. I relaxed a little too much. And so then I had to have a haircut, and my parents were pissed off. They didn't want me to have long hair either, but that pissed them off.
Wait, they were pissed off because you had long hair and pissed off because you had to get a haircut?
That's the way it went through most of the time. My dad wanted me to have a military crew cut, and whenever my hair got a little too long, he would get upset. But if anyone outside of the family said anything about it, he would defend me. In fact, when I was in high school and my hair had gotten fairly long, not real long, we had gone to a baseball game, like a high school baseball game. And when we were walking away, this kid that I barely knew gave me a wolf whistle, like
I don't think I know what a wolf whistle is.
like you would whistle at a girl in
Oh,
the
okay.
50s, yeah.
Okay.
And so that was the implication. And my dad turned around and let this guy have it. So it's a funny thing.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. So I think I've written that story on some level somewhere.
There is something therapeutic about writing that helps mental health.
Don't you feel a lot better after you've written?
When I've written something good, yeah, I feel a sense of pride,
I think you're right, though. I think it is excellent for your mental health.
Yeah.
I think, like so many other things, you get dammed up. Well, not to be real, but as a guy, if you don't, when you're an adolescent and all of a sudden you go through puberty and you start having sexual feelings, if you don't get rid of them one way, they're going to come out another way.
Right.
The famous nocturnal emission that when it first happens to you, you go, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's like the writing. I think if you're a writer and you don't write for a certain time, you don't always recognize what it's doing to your mental health. You become irritable, and I do. I become irritable, angry. I'm not a fun person. And then after I write, I'm in love with the world again.
Yeah. Yeah, there is something to that.
Other writers like William Faulkner just went on binge drunks. So, there are unhealthy ways too of handling that.
Yes. How has there never been a band called Nocturnal Emissions? There must have been at some point.
That phrase came up the other day. Maybe it came up did it come up in the Riff album discussion?
I don't recall it coming up. That didn't.
Someone's mentioned it recently, but yeah, I don't know how there's not been a band named that. I think of all sorts of great band names, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you're not going to go see a therapist when you've got issues, writing is a good way to at least face some things about yourself and make yourself vulnerable.
Oh, for sure. Exercise too.
That's what my brother and I are going to do after we get done with this today. We're going to the gym.
Yep. That's the key thing. Exercise, exercise,
Yeah.
which I've been a little lazy about, but we'll get there.
Well, we go through all these different, not just seasons, but seasons within seasons of where things, we just don't feel up to them. But yeah, when we can, again, like writing, like working out, then I think we maintain a balance of mental health that we may not have everything figured out. It may not keep us from feeling alone or even a little bit depressed, but endorphins start working
Yep.
as they're
Yes, they
supposed
do.
to. So have we solved all the mental health crises of the world?
I think we have, as a matter of fact. I think
Um,
we have.
I would like anyone who listens to this podcast, if they, not that we're authorities, but if they need sounding boards, I know I'm willing to be someone's sounding board about how you cope with more in depth with things that are bugging you. So, or if not us, there are plenty of people out there that you can reach out to who are good counselors. And oftentimes, when you want to see a therapist, the first session is either discounted or even free.
Right.
So it's such a good thing to do to see how it's going to work.
And if you're having suicidal thoughts, what's the code? 988?
I think that's right.
Let's check because I don't want to give out the wrong one.
You don't want to have them ending up calling the weather.
Yeah, it is 988.
Okay, good. 988.
That's good.
Yeah, the worst thing I think you can do, particularly if you're feeling lonely, is to stay alone.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Very
so
well.
we'll figure out another topic for the next day.
The next recording.
Yeah.
Thank you as always, Terry. This is always good fun.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you for orchestrating all of this.
Well, people seem to like it, so
Well, good.